all, what is the difference between life and living? Life. My mom used to tell me this is life when I can't see in parts of life. But to animals, especially in captivity, they're experiencing living. In a cage, having people coming out of nowhere. You want to rob them, but you can't. You will be hungry for the next few days if you do it. This is where poverty exists in animals too. Hi, I'm Yingtong, and today I'm going to be talking about animals in captivity. Time travels back to the day when I was in kindergarten. My mom bought me a puppy. I got back from school and saw the puppy. We voted and decided that she would be named Picky. I did my work as fast as I could so that I could play with her. This routine continues over and over. This story seems going to be happily ever after, until one day I got home and Picky was gone. At first, I thought that my dad had taken her for a walk, but proving wrong, my dad was right. I checked the bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, everywhere. It was like she was gone all of a sudden. I waited until Mom got home and asked her. After I knew that Picky was given to a dog charity, I locked my room door and cried for hours. I'm wondering about why was Picky given away. As soon as I controlled my emotions, I opened the door and asked, Mom, why did you have to give Picky away? She explained to me that I didn't take care of her. Playing doesn't mean taking care. 2 months after Picky was gone, having me shower her, feed her, or taking her for a walk. After that experience, we never had pets again. Every time I asked my mom for a pet, she always said, when you're older. After this experience, I donated to the WWF and continued research about animals in captivity. A few months ago, I watched a film by the Animal Welfare Charity talking about how animals in captivity need to be happy and healthy. They released this film to talk about animals' emotions in captivity, and they asked viewers what they might feel if they were zoo animals. After I watched it, I was shocked by their emotions. They have to be trained for at least 2 hours a day and have visitors scattering around them. The connection between these animals and the welfare highlights how inadequate care in zoos can result in negative feelings. Comments are loneliness, stress, and suffering and pain. Other than the Animal Welfare Organization, there is one more organization that I rely on with my research, the Animal Equality Foundation. Recently, the Animal Equality Foundation investigation team carried out a 9-month research to the most important zoos in Spain. A few activists recorded the life of enslaved animals in zoos using photos, videos, and expert reports. Basically, the meaning of zoo animals is caged life and no opportunity to develop interest and meat. I've always go to the zoo in my early childhood, and the word that I heard the most is, "Aw, so cute." Behind-the-scenes things are not cute at all. They might be killed when their group size exceeds the space allotted to them, which means they will be killed when they're different sizes from the animals of the same kind. As a kid, I loved to go to Pastor Nero's house, and I always wondered, where did these animals come from? Until one day, my family goes to the puppy mills. The tourist guide explained to us that most pets come from puppy mills, where breeders breed animals and sell it to pet stores. I love pets, especially dogs. Like me, about 47% of households in the U.S. own at least a dog. Cats are just as popular. 46% of households in the U.S. owns at least a cat, but only about 30% of pets are adopted from shelters around the United States. From this data, I can make a judgment that Buyers buy from pet stores because it's easier and safer. But buyers always say health problem. After weeks or months after purchase, they might face enormous vet bills or even death of their pets. Normally, breeders do not sell puppies to pet stores. Instead, they want to meet the buyer in person so that the breeder can advise the buyer how to take care of the pets and information about the pets. Helping animals is something important to us. At first, I thought about helping the animal high school welfare club. But because of the MCO, I decided to do something different. As a result, I was creating using KHALED and I put the WWF donation website on it, making a QR code. This is what the posters look like. And I place it here and like in public meeting areas and chatting areas. And some of it I put into airplanes so it's more visible like animals are just as a must to our planet. They are related to us in many ways. In other words, we're animals. As the leader of the living things, help them but not destroy them. This is what we do. Why are we doing this? The human race is kind at first though. Perhaps we work together to make this animal unique animal. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel. I've always loved learning new things and going to school. Unfortunately, not all girls are treated fairly or equally. Schools like MKS have kids from all around the world, kids from different religions and different genders, but not all schools are like this. People have told girls that we don't deserve education. Girls might not speak up, but you should remind them that every girl has the right to education. This really influenced me and made me notice that gender inequality is actually happening in our world. Not all kids have buses to go on, have bikes, or to walk to school on a normal road. Kids from Sri Lanka go to school on a thin wooden plank. Indonesian kids go to school on a zip line. Kids from the Philippines have to cross rivers to go to school. And kids from parts of China even have to climb mountains. And 25% of these kids that go to school in these harsh conditions have to at least walk for 3.5 hours just to go to school. Did you know that public schools in France are free? Just like in China, education is free and only lunches cost money. So a school year in France does not cost a lot. Also, French schools can be very, very strict. For example, imagine if you blew your nose. You wanted to throw your tissue away. So you stood up and walked to the trash can. The next second, your teacher starts to yell at you and tells you to go to the corner. The corner is a certain edge of the classroom where kids reflect on what they did. Another example is a donkey's hat. A long time ago, when kids got into trouble, kids would need to wear a hat in the shape of a donkey's ear. In French culture, donkeys are not intelligent animals. Kids like us are very lucky. We are educated, we have books, computers, and the internet. So even if the virus came, it wouldn't affect us from having fun at school. But not all girls are like me and my partner. 550 million girls do not have access to education, and 40% of them are from the African continent. As we can see from this chart, 10 million kids from South Africa aren't educated. 60 million kids from sub-Saharan Africa aren't educated. 1.3 billion kids from all ages don't even have the access to internet. So that means if viruses came to their country, they would stop school for at least 3 months or even more. But the biggest problem is happening in West Asia. Which country do you think has the least amount of girls educated? Did you guess Afghanistan? Because that's the correct answer. Only 17.8% of girls attend primary school. Why is this number so low? A group called the Taliban invaded Afghanistan in the period of 1996 through 2001. The Taliban does not believe that girls should be educated. Girls are furious, mad, and depressed. One day, a young woman was on a bus going to school. It was a normal day until a bunch of men dressed like thieves came and shot the young woman on the thinnest bone in the skull. Do you know who she is? I bet you definitely know her. She is Malala. She was in the hospital for 72 hours. Luckily, she didn't die. After full recovery, she read her speech about rights to education on public news. It inspired hundreds and thousands of girls to fight for their own rights. Then, after this speech, one of the biggest things happened to her. At the young age of 15 years old, she won the Nobel Peace Prize and still is the youngest to win it. Now she is in England, has a master's degree in Oxford University. One child, one teacher, one pen, and one book can change the world, she once said. Hopefully, by 2030, the United Nations will achieve global goal number 4, quality education, so all girls and women can be educated. So, in order to take action, me and my partner had planned a book drive to a Chin refugee center where kids do not have the same access to education like we do. For our book drive, we got help from Mr. Spence and got 2 big donation boxes. We put it at the main breezeway. To this day, equality toward education is still a huge problem. Kids and women from all religions, all countries, all deserve education. We should be treated fairly and equally, just like boys do. I hope that access and inequality will start to change soon. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is KHALED. I am from Saudi Arabia. Today I will talk about how our actions can impact climate change. People can affect climate change. For example, I walk to school in the morning. Then after school, I walk back to my home. This is a good thing because it is not only walking, it is healthy for your body and easy to do it. Also helps the earth because it is good for the environment. Sometimes I use my scooter to go to my home or school. Oh, sorry, I don't go to. Okay. Sometimes I use my scooter to go to my home or school. How do you go to your home or work? This daily choice can impact the earth, and your choice either can help climate change or make climate change worse. I wanted to research climate change because I saw pictures of ice melting and no one was doing anything to stop it. This affects animals, like penguins and polar bears, because their habitats are disappearing. Here is a lowly polar bear that he doesn't have any space to walk. Or this penguin. Shouldn't we do something to help them? We need people to care about animals that die from ice melting. They cannot swim for 24 hours. They need a place to rest on, but the ice is melting. Did you know 500 to 600 polar bears die from ice melting every year? Also, I see cars in the streets. Most of the cars that I saw use a petrol as fuel, and they give poisons like smoke to the earth. This causes air pollution. That's why we need to use electric cars like this or this. Oh, sorry. Because electric cars don't harm the earth or make things hotter. Also, when I am going to my building, I am going from the parking and I just see one electric cars. Well, I should see more. Who agrees with me? Also, I see plastic in the streets. Why do people throw plastic in the streets? Maybe they don't have hands to throw it in the trash. But I think you all have hands. I think so. That we need to change people's mind to throw rubbish in the trash, not in the streets or in the sea. Also, we need to change people's mind to not using cars and start walking and using electric cars. Because it helps the earth and it is healthy for your body. My mom always uses reusable bags when she goes shopping. She doesn't use plastic bags. Why? Because it helps the earth and you can use it so many times. And Also, I remind my mom a lot to use reusable bags. What do you use, you or your mom, when you go shopping? Before the end of my speech, I want to ask you this question. What do you think the Earth will look like in the future? I will tell you what I think and what I hope. I think that I think and I hope the Earth will be better than now. It could have clean air and without viruses and pollution. But this can only happen if you do your part. We have to work together. Also, I made this drawing of the Earth melting to show the example of Earth getting warmer. I hope you see I hope you see and I hope you see this and take the problem seriously. Lastly, I would like to give you some take ideas for helping the earth or fight climate change. First, you need to use electric cars and use no. First, you need to not use plastic and use reusable water bottles, forks, spoons, knives, and shopping bags. 2. Use less water. For example, you can take a short shower. 3. Change your light to LED light to save electricity. Unplug your electronics from the socket. 5. Use electric cars or walk or bike or scooter. Can you do your part to fight climate change? And thank you for listening to my presentation.
I've become strongly aware of a problem, and it's a hot topic issue. In fact, the Earth itself is getting hotter, which, if not corrected, will soon affect the lives of all living organisms on Earth. My name is Natalie, and I would like to not only raise your awareness just as global temperatures are being raised, but I would like to raise the impact levels of each person. We talk about it all the time, but never really do much about it. Earth is forever changing because of global warming. Without change, global warming could be the end of mankind. But there is hope. We can rescue the planet now by switching to sustainable living, a practice in daily life of reducing the use of fossil fuels. People today are dependent on vast amounts of energy. We use energy to power our tech, to light our ways, and to climate control our environments. And although energy being made today does the job, it hurts the earth as much as it helps humans. It's not sustainable and it's destructive. But there's hope. New, greener energy sources of power are beginning to grow in popularity. One day, my dad told me about a news program about China's gray sky. The air had been filled with too much carbon that it was directly causing many respiratory illnesses in the people forced to breathe it. China can easily reach 341 on the air quality index throughout the year. This was a result in China burning so much coal as their primary energy source. The country was also polluting the air with burnout from producing so much steel. I thought to myself, there must be a better way, and there is. In another conversation, my dad told me about how Andrew Forrest, also known as Twiggy, the CEO of Fortescue Metals Group, was planning to run his company completely on hydrogen fuel. Hydrogen fuel is a new energy source made by water. Earth is covered in 71% water, and one of its two ingredients is hydrogen. This means we can make hydrogen fuel from just plain water. I used to think that hydrogen was hard to find and dangerous to use. I was still willing to look into it, and then I discovered how simple it is. When I first inquired about hydrogen on my own, I was faced with a lot of challenging words and explanations that were almost impossible to understand. This was until I watched Twiggy's speech, and he explained it in terms that just made sense. To understand hydrogen fuel, we should also explore fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are things we burn to release energy. Fossil fuels are made from rotting organic matter that has been underground for a long period of time and has endured intense heat and pressure for millions of years. This turns it into a sludge that burns easily. The problem is, there's only so much left, and when it's burned, it harms all living things. We use fossil fuels to power our homes, cars, and other types of transportation. We also use fossil fuels to support construction, and we burn thousands of tons of coal every day to melt iron ore into steel. Our homes, schools, malls, and more all rely on steel for strength. This results in 46% of worldwide carbon emissions every year. High carbon emissions lead to terrible air. Energy sources that create toxic emissions are known as dirty energy. In Malaysia, we see normal AQI readings below 50. Countries that produce steel are in the hundreds. Any AQI over 300 is poisonous to breathe in. China's air is so bad that it's hard to see through, and people are wearing N95 gas masks to survive. Because of this, around 3,000 people die every day. Hydrogen fuel could just be the solution to this. Hydrogen is so powerful that it can heat up to 1,500 degrees Celsius, which is hot enough to melt iron. Hydrogen is easy to make. It's so easy to make that I made it myself. It comes from water. It's the H in H2O. When it's burned, it produces nothing but water. It's the H in H2O. That water vapor that it produces when it's burned will go back into the water cycle and produce more rain. Hydrogen burns like coal, but it's easier to get, we'll never run out of it, and it's non-toxic. Hydrogen is simply made by passing a small electric current through water. The current frees the hydrogen from the water. Then we capture the hydrogen to use for fuel. This method is called electrolysis. The electricity separates the oxygen bubbles from the hydrogen. There is about 2 times the amount of hydrogen than oxygen. When hydrogen is used, nothing but water vapor is produced, which makes it 100% clean. We still need electricity to make electrolysis happen. But instead of using fossil fuels to power the process, we can use other clean energies, such as solar and wind. Hydrogen is the simplest element on the periodic table and holds about 10 times the amount of energy than fossil fuels do. This means we can store more energy in smaller spaces. Refueling cars are a lot quicker for hydrogen compared to battery-powered cars. If all taxis in New York itself took up one charging station, it would take up 180 NBA courts worth of space. If that same amount of taxis were powered by hydrogen, you would only need 12. This one energy source could be the energy source we needed. Hydrogen is the new energy carrier that will power hundreds of cities. Slowly but surely, people are starting to bring their attention to this new energy source. This one energy source could change the world. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the battle. Next slide. I want to ask you one simple question. What do you think about war? Do you think it's bad or do you think it's good? Regardless of your perspective and which side wins, war has rules and it affects people. I'm Daniel and today I'm going to be speaking to you all about war. War is a conflict between two sides based on a disagreement. If the disagreement is important enough, they go to war. Slide 4. My mom was I'm from Venezuela, and Venezuela is having a war against itself right now. Some people voted for a president, but a man named Maduro disagreed. Eventually, he took control over the Venezuelan army because he threatened the country. So, not too long ago, my mom was there, and smoke bombs were going off. Next slide. These smoke bombs could have been deadly because they contain a chemical called ammonium nitrate. Next slide. This chemical could have been very dangerous because if lit at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, could have exploded. So anyways, my mom couldn't see where she was going because of the smoke bombs. But luckily, a woman she never knew came to help her get to safety. It could have, like, if the woman never helped her to safety, then she could have been badly hurt or even have died. But anyways, I think war sucks. So why do we do war? Well, there are lots of reasons why we do war. Next slide. And the next slide. Maybe the most basic is because when one group or more wants something, they start by negotiating, but if negotiating doesn't work, they go to war. Before they go to war, they must calculate their chances of going into war. They see how much fighters they have and how much guns and weapons they have and whether they think they can win the war or not. After this, if they think they're good enough, they go to war. But another reason why they could go to war is because an ally could have offended or betrayed them. It could also be caused because one person wants something from the other person, like land. It can be horrible when two sides go to war. But did you know they can't just fight any way they want? Nope, there are rules. I will tell you about the rules in a bit, but to understand the rules, we have to look at the tools that they have used over time. I'm going to start by comparing the war in Afghanistan, next slide, and then I'm going to compare the one in 400 BC when the Greeks needed to invade a town called Athens, next slide. I will start by saying what guns they used, which they used the C-17 rifle, and they also used other guns like shotguns. They used bombs and other explosives like grenades. They used ground vehicles like, next slide, tanks and jeeps, and air vehicles like helicopters and planes, next slide. They also used robots to help carry backpacks and drones to fly in the sky. Afghanistan's allies, like the French, help provide these tools of war. They sent about 2,000 jets and tanks to help them in battle. A war in 400 BC used different tools. The Greeks used, next slide, spears, swords, next slide. They used spears, swords, axes, and mallets to kill, catapults with flames, and bows and arrows to attack from far away. To protect themselves, they used, next slide, next slide. They used things like shields, and a strategy where they would make a box of shields so they could hide in it so they would be immune from the attack. They wore iron, gold, or wood armor to protect themselves, next slide, from enemies, and would use enemy skulls and put them on spears to show strength. Advances in technology create new weapons of war. These weapons can be more devastating and cause greater effects than others. They can cause too many problems. So world leaders got together during the Geneva Convention to set up the rules for war. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, some important rules are, next slide, 1. No killing innocent citizens or the medical personnel helping the wounded. 2. These laws prohibit torture to both soldiers and citizens. And 3. Prisoners need to live in fair conditions to survive. There are actually about 30 rules or more for war, but these are some of the most important. 196 countries have all agreed to follow the rules, and the rest, which there are more, either use different or use the same but with more rules. If a nation or person breaks these rules, they commit a war crime and are investigated by the Committee for International Health Regulations, IHR. There are harsh penalties for these war crimes. War crimes are evaluated after the war. But what happens to the people that are captured during the war? What happens to the prisoners? Think about these facts. Next slide. Studies have suggested that 41.9% of war veterans suffered from mental damage or PTSD. Over 4,000 soldiers were held during war prisons. In the war of Soviet versus Germany during World War II, about 70,000 soldiers died on both sides. Over 200 prisoners were held, prisons were held by the government or the states today. By the end of Civil War, over 50,000 prisoners held by the prisons died to disease. Also, beside those facts, to my right at least, there shows a graph of how many soldiers were killed each year. And look at that. In 2003, 12 soldiers were killed, or actually sentenced to death, which is bad. Anyways, war happens, and it happens throughout all of history. I I don't think we can avoid war, but we should be fair in how we fight. We have to follow the rules, or war will get too big to destroy us. Or war will get too big and destroy us. Before you go, I want to share with you a quote from John F. Kennedy. He once said, "If mankind does not put an end to war, war will put an end to mankind." Thank you.
Bang, bang, bang! That's an all too common sound in the United States. According to the realtors, about 10 billion bullets are sold each year in the United States. Yes, I said billion with a B. The vast majority of those are fired on secure gun ranges for training purposes or for hunting. But it is estimated that 0.2% of those are fired in acts of violence or aggression. That's 4 million bullets. And each one of those bullets have been loaded into a gun that is being carried around in public. What would you do if that gun was pointed at you? Hello, my name is ANAYA, and today I'll be talking about gun violence. Not very long ago, my mom was reading an article about what motivated a 21-year-old man to commit a mass shooting at a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado. He ended the lives of 10 people. It was the second mass shooting in the United States in less than a week. The gunman was armed with both a pistol and military-style assault weapon. I was shocked by what she was telling me. A random tragedy, I thought. What a random tragedy, I thought. But you know what? Unfortunately, it is not random at all. In 2020, there were over 614 mass shootings in the United States. That's almost 2 every single day. So, how is this even possible? You may be asking yourself, it's because of how easy it is to buy weapons. Anyone who is 18 years old or older and who doesn't have a criminal record can buy a gun. They can just walk into the Walmart with their driver's license and walk out with a weapon. They can buy pistols, carabiners, shotguns, and even regulated submachine guns. People as young as 16 can start handling guns with adult supervision. However, they can only use beginner's guns, such as these pictured on the screen here. In other countries around the world, the criteria is different. For instance, in India, you only have to be 21 years old to buy a gun and 18 years old to start your training. But in the United States, it's easy. Sometimes it's even expected. Did you know in Kennesaw, Georgia, it is mandatory at least one member in each household maintains a gun? Yep, it's the law. I wonder how soon other cities will follow this. With so many people having guns available to them, it's no wonder bad things happen. The effects of guns are terrible: murder and manslaughter. The trauma for those who survive. Survivors suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, short form PTSD, and often relive the moment in their nightmares and wake up screaming. It even affects the family members of those involved. Here's a grid here to show you just how many people are affected by this. And this is only in the United States. I'll give you a second to look at this chart. Imagine the numbers of the other nations. Imagine how bad it will get if we don't stop this now. What is the motivation of gun violence? The most common motivation is negative emotions such as anger and sadness. When we feel sad or angry, and it's not wrong to feel that way, you should not have a weapon in your hand. Sometimes our emotions control our actions. If we have access to weapons when we feel the strongest emotions, we might choose to use those weapons. Pure rage caused by the loss of a job, stresses about money or relationship, issues can cause gun owners to act out in the worst way. An additional contributor is alcohol. Being drunk makes us feel the emotions more. We also have less self-control, and the chances of us acting out are greater. Personal issues, strong emotions, alcohol, and accesses to weapons have led to too many acts of violence in the United States. Did you know in the US there are more guns than people? Over 9 million new handguns are produced every year in the United States. It has a population of 328.2 million people. According to a recent survey, about 44% of Americans' homes contain a gun, and 32% of adults own their own weapon. This means that guns are everywhere. Soon, guns will become the number one in population. In the United States, there are more than 100 people die each day, and 230 additional people are wounded. This is the impact of guns. But this is not only a problem in the US. Did you know that 44% of homicides around the world are caused by gun violence? That is almost half. In 2012, there were more than 1.4 million firearm-related gun deaths of civilians. What I would like you to take away from this is to inform someone you know about what you have learned today, to understand what this is caused, and lastly, to ask yourself, how can I help? What you can do to help is you can inform even more people about this gun violence. So if they encounter something like this, they're prepared for the worst. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.